I never expected my quiet ranch to turn into a battleground, not with neighbors, but with a woman who thought she ran the place. It started like any other day. I had just come back from drill, still in my military uniform, just taking a moment to unwind and feed the horses. That's when she showed up, clipboard in hand, sunglasses too big for her face, and an attitude that could fill the whole valley. She marched right up to my fence and demanded I remove that uniform immediately because, according to her, it wasn't in line with the neighborhood's appearance guidelines. Yeah, she really said that. Now, I try to stay calm. Years of service have taught me patience. But there's something about someone disrespecting the uniform and everything it stands for that doesn't sit right. I politely told her this was my asterisk land, not under HOA control, but she wasn't having it. She threatened to report me. To who, I still don't know. I figured that'd be the end of it. But Karen had other plans, and so did I. What she didn't know was that my unit was planning a visit. Special Forces brothers who don't take kindly to disrespect. Let's just say when they showed up, things got very real, very fast, and that's when the tables turned. Now, here's the thing about Karen, she wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was the self-appointed community standards enforcer, even though no one actually gave her that title. I bought this ranch for peace and space, way out from any actual HOA lines, but she seemed to think her authority stretched past her property line. Apparently, seeing me in uniform, mud on my boots and all, offended her neighborhood image. She even snapped a few pictures of me, like she was gathering evidence for a court case. I laughed it off at first, thinking she'd get bored and move on. But no, she doubled down. A day later, I found a typed letter taped to my gate. She wrote that I was creating a hostile environment just by wearing a military uniform in public view. That's when I knew it wasn't just about rules. This was personal. Karen wasn't just enforcing a dress code. She had something against the uniform itself. Maybe she didn't think someone like me could land out here. Maybe she didn't like the way I carried myself. But what she didn't know is that I wasn't alone. My unit, guys I trust with my life, had already planned to stop by the ranch for a short retreat. They weren't in uniform, but they carried themselves like warriors, and Karen noticed. A few days later, the guys showed up, my Special Forces brothers, each of them carrying their own weight, both literally and figuratively. They weren't there to make a scene, just to relax and decompress. But we all knew that Karen wouldn't just let it slide. As soon as she saw the group walking toward the barn, she started muttering under her breath from her front porch. She couldn't resist. Her sense of control had already been tested, and now it seemed she was ready to escalate. I could feel the tension rising. She was the type of person who wouldn't back down, no matter how unreasonable she was. Her eyes followed us like hawks as we unloaded gear from the truck, glancing at the uniforms, the way we moved, how we talked. To her, we were an unwelcome presence, like a storm ready to shake the very foundations of her carefully manicured world. I couldn't help but notice her constant presence, watching, waiting, almost like she was daring us to give her a reason to strike. The guys noticed it too. One of them, Jake, had already picked up on her attitude. He'd been through hostile situations overseas and wasn't exactly in the mood for unnecessary drama. If she wants a fight, we'll give her one, he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. But we knew better than to engage directly. The last thing I wanted was to escalate things further. Karen, however, wasn't done. She called someone, probably a friend in some other HOA, or a legal advisor she thought she could lean on, and started to talk about harassment and threats. Every word she said, every move she made, was like fuel to the fire she was building, and we were caught in the middle of it. It was clear. We weren't going to walk away from this without a confrontation. The only question was, how far was she willing to push? The air around us grew thicker with every passing minute. Karen was circling her house like a hawk, eyeing us every step we took. I could feel the weight of her gaze, but I also noticed the subtle change in her behavior. She wasn't just watching anymore, she was planning something. My guys were too focused on setting up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to be dragged into something bigger than we could control. By late afternoon, the tension hit its peak. Karen stormed over, clipboard still in hand, with a phone pressed against her ear. Her face was flushed with frustration, and I knew that whatever legal action, "You have no right to be here," she snapped, her voice louder than I'd expected. "You're all just a bunch of—" She paused as if considering her next words carefully. "Dangerous people, and I'm not going to let you threaten my home or my family." I took a deep breath. This wasn't about what was right or wrong anymore. It was about control, and Karen wasn't about to give it up. I wasn't sure how far she'd go, but I had a sinking feeling it wasn't going to be pretty. My team stood behind me, not moving but clearly ready. And that's when we heard the sirens, disturbingly close. A police car appeared at the end of the driveway, lights flashing. Karen had made her move. The police car screeched to a halt in front of the gate, its lights flashing like a warning. I could feel the entire atmosphere shift in an instant. My heart skipped a beat as Karen smiled, almost too smugly, as if she'd won. She was standing on her porch now, arms crossed, clearly pleased with herself. But there was something off in the air, something I couldn't quite place. The officer, a young guy who looked fresh out of the academy, stepped out of the car and looked at the group of us. He paused for a second, sizing us up, then his eyes flickered over to Karen for direction. That's when I realized this wasn't just a routine visit. Karen had planned this. She wasn't just complaining about the uniform. She was using her influence to manipulate the system. Before I could even react, the officer walked straight up to me. "Sir," he said, his voice firm but uncertain, "we've had a report of a potential military training operation being conducted on private property. There's concern for public safety." A cold chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about the uniform anymore. Karen had somehow twisted the situation into something bigger, accusing us of running some sort of unregistered military operation. It didn't make any sense, but it was enough to rattle the officer. "I'll need to speak with all of you," he continued, his hand hovering over his radio, probably unsure if he was about to escalate this into a full-blown investigation. The guys stayed calm, but I could see the tension in their faces. If Karen had really pulled this off, we were in serious trouble. It wasn't just our day at the ranch anymore. It was a battle for our reputation, our freedom, and maybe even our future. I could feel the walls closing in, and I wasn't sure how we were going to get out of this one. The officer's eyes darted from Karen to the group of us, clearly trying to figure out who was the one causing the real trouble. I could see the gears turning in his head, but what happened next wasn't what any of us expected. One of my guys, a quiet but sharp veteran named Sam, stepped forward with a calm, almost unnerving presence. Without saying a word, he pulled out his phone and showed the officer a video, footage from the past few days of our time on the ranch. It was clear, simple footage of us unloading gear, working with horses, and enjoying some downtime. "This is what we've been doing," Sam said quietly. "Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just soldiers looking to relax and catch up." The officer watched it, his brow furrowing as he replayed the video. The tension in the air was palpable, but then the officer's expression shifted. He turned back to Karen, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her confident facade. "This video doesn't show any military training," the officer said, his voice softening as the reality set in. "You might want to reconsider your accusations. You can't just accuse people of things without proof." Karen's face turned a bright red. I could see the fury building behind her eyes, but she didn't have a leg to stand on anymore. The officer looked back at us and gave a tight nod. "I'll be speaking with your neighbor," he said, before turning and walking back to his car. But just as I thought we were in the clear, Karen took one final desperate swing. She stormed over to me, her voice shaking with rage. "You think this is over? You think you've won? I'll make sure the whole neighborhood knows who you really are." I could feel the anger bubbling up in me, but just as I was about to say something, Sam stepped in again. "It's over, Karen. You're not in charge here, and you never were." She stood there for a moment, glaring, before spinning on her heel and marching back to her house. The moment she slammed her door behind her, the air seemed to clear. We all took a collective breath, but just as I thought it was done, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a message from one of the guys, but instead, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, unsure. "Hello." The voice on the other end was cool, composed. "You don't know me, but you've just tangled with the wrong person. I suggest you and your team leave this area before things escalate." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, the chill creeping back up my spine. Karen wasn't working alone. She had someone backing her, and whoever it was, they weren't going to stop. The call hung in the air, leaving a strange weight on my chest. I glanced at the guys, but they didn't seem as shaken as I felt. They'd been through worse. This was nothing compared to the things they faced overseas, but the threat wasn't something we could ignore. Whoever was behind Karen wasn't just some neighborhood busybody. They had power, and that was something I wasn't willing to underestimate. We decided to stay at the ranch for the night, but we doubled down on security. No one was leaving or getting near us unless they had good reason. As we sat around the fire later that evening, the guys shared stories, tried to laugh, and reminded each other of the importance of brotherhood, but the weight of the unknown still hung over us. The next morning, Karen's house was empty. Her car was gone, and the house looked abandoned, as though she'd vanished into thin air. No signs of trouble, just gone. And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't the real threat. It was whoever had been pulling her strings from behind the scenes. We didn't get the closure we wanted, but we knew one thing for sure: this wasn't over. We had each other, and that was all we needed to face whatever came next. The ranch was ours, and we were ready for whatever the future might throw at us.